Hello, School Transportation Nation. I'm Tony Corcoran, the publisher of School Transportation News. Welcome to episode 50. We made it. And this episode is brought to you by TransFinder, the leader in school bus routing software. And our friends at Zonar are providing our tech tip this week. And they are a leader in smart fleet management.
Welcome back, Nation. I'm Ryan Gray, Editor-in-Chief of School Transportation News. A little bit later, we'll be joined by our friend Michelle Ramm, the Director of Transportation for Mesquite ISD in Texas.
Yeah, Ryan, we saw Michelle a couple of weeks ago over at STN Expo Virtual. So she was real active there at the show and chatting up. And I think that was her first time coming to an STN Expo, which is cool to be able to expose all these new transportation professionals to all the good stuff we have to offer our industry. So was excited to see her and how much we were able to provide our attendees. So good job to you and the team on all that. And Ryan, we have got a ton of action going on in the news. We saw last Friday the COVID-19 relief bill for $1.9 trillion passed through the Senate by an extremely slim tiebreaker margin. But excluding that $15 minimum wage, I mean, what do you think, Ryan? How do you think this is going to impact the school transportation industry? You know, what kind of dollars are we talking? What does this look like?
Well, it's $130 billion for K through 12. And granted, transportation may get a fraction of that money, but it's a good sign, right? School districts are clamoring for budget money right now. Everyone's in the midst of budget reconciliation and budget planning for next school year. There's a lot of new products out on the market. We have a big article coming up next month on ventilation systems. We reported previously that is an acceptable use of funds under both the CARES Act as well as the Consolidated Appropriations Act that was passed late last year. And ostensibly, it will be once Congress passes this $1.9 trillion relief package. So we should be having this passed soon. Even by the time this airs, we hopefully will have this a done deal. We know that every American, well, at least excluding the very high income earners, will be receiving a shot in the arm to the tune of $1,400 a person, as well as some money for child dependents. But certainly for school bus, it's a welcome Valentine's Day gift, an early Valentine's Day gift here as we head into the weekend. And, you know, everyone's celebrating Love the Bus, and they're talking about their school bus drivers and the roles they play, which really have been taken to the next level amid this pandemic, really literally putting their lives on the line. They are essential workers. They're considered such by the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, I believe 1B in the list of essential workers to get the vaccine. And that's another thing, right? A lot of folks are asking questions about vaccines. And you mentioned, Tony, STN Expo Virtual a couple of weeks ago, had a big discussion with a couple of our Legal Eagle friends, a couple of attorneys from Clark Hill. And basically, what a lot of folks are indicating is that they are making this voluntary. We'll hear from Michelle Ramm a little bit later. She'll talk about what her district is doing in terms of vaccines. But certainly, there's a lot of federal guidance in place regarding vaccines. And you can check out an article that I posted on our website last week that's up that kind of takes you through one of the sessions at the STN Expo Virtual. But it's interesting, Education Week reported last week that the new CDC director, Rochelle Walensky, she suggested that schools don't need to wait for teachers and ostensibly school bus drivers or other staff to get vaccinated before reopening to in-person learning. And this is really nothing new. Education Week pointed out that CDC has never actually recommended that all teachers should be vaccinated. I think it's just been assumed nationwide that needs to happen, but not the case. But again, we know that school bus drivers are getting vaccinated. Suffolk Transportation, which is one of the largest school bus contractors serving New York's Long Island, they've already vaccinated 500 of their drivers through last week in conjunction with their local union. And another big news item from last week was this mandatory mask guidance. at the federal level. So with President Biden's American Rescue Plan, which of course includes the 1.9 trillion relief package, he was talking about mandatory masks, at least over the first 100 days of his presidency. Well, that came into fruition. He signed an executive order, a lot of you will remember, several weeks ago, actually got into the security directive nationwide with both CDC and TSA. Associate Editor Taylor Hannon published an article last week that dives into the particulars on this. But essentially, school districts or bus contractors could bar students from boarding if they are not wearing their masks. Though certainly that's not the intent of this. And this is listed in the CDC guidance. It says, there's a footnote that says CDC could bring criminal penalties against riders who do not wear their masks. That's really not making a lot of difference to a lot of districts I've talked to. They're still going with their district policy. We'll wait and see if they end up amending that. But again, what we're looking at is, I think the federal government is trying to really just home in on that message of wear your masks, wear your masks, wear your masks. This guidance, again, it's public and private transportation. School bus is included in that, along with the airlines, over-the-road bus, transit, trains, planes, automobiles, that whole deal. NAPT and NASDIPS, so the National Association for People Transportation and National Association of State Directors of People Transportation Services, last week issued a joint statement recognizing that nearly all school bus operations that have resumed and that are transporting students are adhering to the masks, but like I said, not all of them are. The National Association of Elementary School Principals, meanwhile, released findings last month of its latest survey of members, and masking strategies, along with ventilation, ranked number 2 on a list of the 14 biggest challenges to overcome. COVID-19 testing was the top concern. In October, STN Reader Survey found that nearly 15% of 212 respondents would continue to allow their school bus drivers to work even if they refuse to wear a mask, potentially due to health conditions. And again, if you look at the CDC guidance, it does have exemptions. It talks about if there are students or individuals that have disabilities that preclude them from wearing masks because of breathing issues or some kind of medical condition, they don't need to wear them. David Cooper, who is with the Transportation Security Administration, spoke at a United Motor Coach Association town hall meeting last week and said that this could even apply to bus drivers who have to wear prescription glasses and they're worried about them fogging up. So there are exemptions. So the information is out there. It's on our website. Read up on it. I'm sure many folks are talking about it. And it'll be interesting going forward with masks, as a lot of folks have talked about, could we just become a society worldwide of just people wearing masks? And that very likely. But the whole conversation about school bus drivers and the safety while they're trying to drive, and perhaps they're wearing those face shields or they're wearing a mask and their glasses fog up. Could this be something that the National Congress on School Transportation takes up? A little too early to tell. This week, the steering committee is meeting to talk about their plans to hold the event that was postponed from last May to this May. So stay tuned for news on that.
Yeah, Ryan, it's interesting with the mask thing because I remember when this all started, right? Obviously, behaviorally, it's not common for people to wear masks in the United States. Overseas, it is common, right? In Asia and places like that. But whenever you saw someone wearing a mask, you would be like, are they sick? Is something wrong with them? Nowadays, right, it's like, why aren't you wearing a mask? Everyone needs to be protected now, right? So there's been a total mind shift and kind of behavioral shift and perception shift around the value of masks. So I would agree with you. I think masks might be here to stay. I have young kids and I appreciate that my kids really haven't really gotten sick this season, right? Like maybe because they're not around other kids, but I feel like the flu season, we've read a lot of articles that say like it's basically non-existent because of all the preventative measures that have been taken because of COVID. So, there are some unrealized benefits to some of the mask wearing as well as, the safety things that are being done and what's the impact of that. So it's very interesting stuff. And Ryan, there's a lot of changes happening in school transportation these days. And this tech tip is brought to you by Zonar, a leader in smart fleet management. Major wireless carriers are sunsetting their 3G networks. If your fleet is still 3G dependent, you risk service disruptions. Eventually, you'll lose service once your carrier hits the final off switch. Beat the rush to move to 4G. Work with a trusted telematics provider like Zonar to upgrade to 4G seamlessly and keep your operations moving without missing a beat. Visit zonarsystems.com/3G sunset. That's zonarsystems.com/3G sunset. Well, Ryan, switching gears a little bit, we've got the Biden climate agenda going green. What's it all mean for school transportation?
Well, if there's a topic that is not COVID-19, it's probably electric vehicles, right? And there's been much, obviously, in the media that's talking about electric vehicles, much straight from President Joe Biden, who, of course, has run on this agenda of zero emissions. And we've been monitoring this, right? This has been ongoing for the last several years in the school bus industry. Now, every single bus manufacturer, both small and large, they have a ZEV option, or soon will be. I know a lot are just coming out right now. But certainly, zero emissions is the phrase everyone has been using. But what does that mean exactly? Right? There's been a lot of articles out there that essentially say, well, zero emissions essentially means from the tailpipe. There's a lot going on, though, with the manufacture of these vehicles, manufacturing the technology, the batteries, mining the elements that are needed for the technology that is anything but environmental friendly. And then there's the fact that if you do have an electric school bus, how do you heat the thing? Here we are in the early February. Pretty cold most places, although last week we had a little bit of a break in the temperatures across much of the country. But the week before that, we were all just freezing. So it's not very conducive to have an electric vehicle if you're not able to get people warm. And that's one of the biggest draws on an electric battery is heating. So we have folks that are using diesel-fired heaters to warm the buses and warm the cabin. There's nothing zero emissions about that. So, it was interesting. I saw an article that was actually published last July, and Pamela Koch Hamilton, she's the director of international trade for the United Nations Conference on Trade and Development. She said that electrical consumers are only made aware of the clean aspects of EVs. Not a surprise, right? The dirty aspects, she says, of the production process are out of sight. Then we also have recent news about halting construction on the Keystone Pipeline, ending fracking, two major initiatives that President Biden has talked about. And he talked about at one point he will not end fracking. Now he's saying he will end fracking. Well, what does this mean? I had an intriguing interview last week with Todd Mao. He's vice president of Roush Cleantech. They're the propane, CNG, and gasoline upfitter of Ford engines and chassis for Bluebird. He was spot on what he termed as a political hot potato. Certainly, he represents the natural gas interests, but also electric, as Roush produces a lithium-ion battery system for the F-650 that targets moving trucks. Think the Penske's of the world, right? So Mao's take is that Biden administration's stance on the Keystone Pipeline is contrary to its stated goals of being more environmentally friendly, certainly in the transport of natural gas from Canada, and it's not very neighborly in terms of jobs up there. Not using the pipeline also requires increased emissions from trucks transporting the fuel to markets. Then back to fracking, which is responsible for about 2/3 of the domestically produced natural gas and half of crude oil here in the U.S. That puts us firmly in the lane of energy independence. But take away fracking, Mao suggests, which that certainly has its own environmental impact. And sadly, the U.S. loses its advantages. Plus, there's so many issues with EV that still need to be figured out. Bottom line, we won't be fully electric society tomorrow or even by 2030, which is what President Biden is now targeting. This relies on too many assumptions that federal subsidies or grant programs, i.e. our taxpayer dollars, can't address. Transportation will need to continue relying on various fuels that are already cleaning up emissions, and in some cases to near zero levels, while further EV development matures. Again, there's a lot of EV out there. People are having success with it, but I know that there is a lot of anxiety out there about this topic. So, we're going to be talking about this at the Green Bus Summit in April. Will certainly be riveting stuff, Tony.
Yeah, no, I know, Ryan, with Roush Cleantech specifically, I know they had launched a brand new propane engine solution as well with Bluebird that was recently announced. So Todd also has those propane alliances as well. So they're doing a lot to represent multiple fuel of choice, right? Because I think most of the manufacturers at this point, it's your choice as the consumer of the fuels to select which is right for your district, which is right for your operation. If you're contracting, what's right for your business, right? So that in the end, we're looking at subsidies that justify the means, the business kind of reimbursement. If that's a subsidy on, propane where you're getting money back for every gallon, or electric, if you're selling your energy back like a V to G, there's a lot of different business cases being made with various fuel types. And you have to just do your homework and figure out which is the best for you. Yeah. And the Green Bus Summit on April 20th through the 22nd is really going to dive deep into everything alternative energy, going green, sustainability, infrastructure, funding. We'll have lots of experts. We have all the major OEMs signing on to participate and speak and share. We have public utilities that are joining us. There's just a lot of different companies and stakeholders that have a vested interest in educating the school transportation industry. And we're going to bring everybody together. We're going to bring our industry together to really hunker down and talk about this very, very important topic of going green. Also, it's on Earth Day. So where else would you want to be on Earth Day but a Green Bus Summit? So you can go to greenbussummit.com to learn more about that. We're really excited to host that event. Also, I wanted to just bring up the fact that we have our February issue out. If you have not seen it yet, be sure to go to stnonline.com and click on our magazine tab. You can also find the February digital version available to look through on our homepage as well. So be sure and check that out. And, everybody these days, Ryan, have you ever had some of those debilitating headaches? It just hits you hard. Hybrid routes, AB routing, taking attendance, giving you migraines. Well, it's a lot to deal with, and aspirin is not going to make that headache go away. The key is to remove the source of the problem. At TransFinder, you'll never hear them tell you to take 2 aspirin and call us in the morning. Instead, they'll suggest taking a look at 3 solutions to solve your headache problems. TransFinder's award-winning Route Finder Plus allows you to easily use calendar-based routing to deal with those pesky AB days. Trip absorption helps easily combine trips when down drivers. And because it's browser-based, you can run your operation from anywhere. Wayfinder, the all-in-one vehicle app, makes it easy to build routes, provide turn-by-turn directions, a huge help for substitute drivers, and to take attendance right on the app too. And there's the award-winning Stop Finder, the parent app that tells parents where the bus is in real time and allows two-way communication between the district and your community. Problem solved, headache gone. Don't live with the pain any longer. Email marketing@transfinder.com or call 800-373-3609. Stay tuned because Ryan's going to be talking to Michelle Ramm from Mesquite ISD.
We are now joined by Michelle Ramm, Director of Transportation for Mesquite ISD, which is just outside of Dallas. Michelle, thanks so much for joining School Transportation Nation.
Thank you so much for inviting me.
Definitely. We have had a good time talking to you recently. I know you were an attendee of the STN Expo virtual a couple of weeks ago. One of the big topics at that event and just across the nation has been vaccines. And curious where you guys stand right now on, are you requiring vaccines for school bus drivers? Is it voluntary? Have any of them gotten them yet? What's going on right now?
So our district put out a questionnaire this week and asked our employees if they were interested in getting the shot or not, because the district 100% believes that's a personal choice by the employee. We did the questionnaire because if quite a few of our employees are interested, then we are going to see if we can have the vaccinations here so they don't have to travel anywhere to get them. But we're not requiring it. It's 100% their choice, and we support them in that personal decision.
And another big topic of discussion has been face masks. We have a national directive that was put forth by the Biden administration, Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, as well as the Transportation Security Administration, have implemented those. And basically, all public-private transportation, including school bus, has been confirmed to us by CDC, has to have everybody wearing masks. And now, of course, there's exemptions that we've talked about for almost a year now with students with disabilities who are nonverbal or might have some breathing issues, problems, medical conditions. Same can go for drivers. But what is the current landscape of face masks on Mesquite ISD school buses?
So currently, if you are in third grade and below, we're not requiring you. We encourage, but we can't make a student wear their face mask on the bus. That is our district's procedure on the matter. Special ed, we work with them and try to encourage them to wear special ed. But as you said, there are some students that is just not feasible for them. It doesn't suit their IEP for the bus. And so we don't ever want to upset a student on the bus, especially our special needs, and make it where they don't want to ride the bus. We're not mandating that. We're working with them. Now, we try to play fun games and have fun masks and, anything that we can do to encourage that. Absolutely, we do that. But we want them to where they want to come and get on our buses, but we want them safe when they do.
Absolutely. And so I know, like with most school districts across the nation, COVID-19 has really done a number on your daily ridership. You were telling me earlier that in a normal year, your school buses were transporting around 8,000 students a day. What's it looking like now?
Now we have very few students riding our buses. We've reduced our routes by about 35 routes that we would normally be running, and that's special ed and regular ed. And we might have a bus, and I'm not talking about a special ed here, I'm talking about a regular ed bus. I have 5 to about 20, 25 kids on a bus, and it just ranges based on our time and distance and our route, but we just don't have the ridership. Most parents are elected to do virtual learning or they're transporting them themselves.
And then a lot of folks have been talking about the importance of seating charts, especially during COVID-19. But really, seating charts is something that has been used by many school districts for years and years. And in fact, I think it's like over 20 years you've had seating charts at Mesquite ISD.
I've been in transportation for 23 years in Texas, and all 23 years a seating chart has been required. So it's a normal thing for us. Our Texas DPS requires it. So we have seating charts all the time, and we have to have them on the bus at any time anything happens to give them to law enforcement. It's an everyday practice for us. It also helps with student management, and it's just a way of life for us.
And that certainly helps with contact tracing, right? If you have to determine any students who were sitting near a child who may have tested positive, or if one of your school bus drivers tests positive, that's got to be able to help to be able to look at that and see who was sitting where. How else are you using contact tracing? Are you using video at all for that? Is there any student tracking that you might be looking to use?
So we are very blessed here in Mesquite. We have an excellent camera system on our buses. And so we are sending that to the campus. The campus is not making us watch the videos. They actually watch the videos and have the home health nurse watch the videos to see if there's been any close contact between an employee and a student or a student on student.
Gotcha. And then Texas is one of those states, one of the few states that requires lap shoulder belts. You've had those for a couple years now there at Mesquite ISD?
We have anything, 2018 or newer, of course, has them, but we went 3 years ago. We're in our third year, final year of retrofitting all of our buses to have them. And so we're on our last year. We're making sure that all of our buses in Mesquite have the 3-point. And so Our students have got used to it. We've still got a few routes that we still need to accomplish before the end of this year and get them set up. But next year, all of our students will have the 3-point on all of our buses, whether it's field trip or home to school.
Excellent. And how many school buses do you have in your fleet total?
We have almost 200.
Oh, that's no small endeavor. Speaking of which, I wanted to talk a little bit here in close about a very cool thing that I learned about that Mesquite ISD has been doing for a couple of years now, and you're really the driving force behind it. You have started a toy drive every year around the holidays. We wrote an article about that last month. Taylor Hannon wrote that article. You can find that on stnonline.com. But Michelle, tell us a little bit more about your toy drive and how it's helping kids in your community.
So we do our McKinney-Vento Christmas for our McKinney-Vento students who are students who do not have a permanent address. And we started 2 years ago, and we reached out to our McKinney-Vento department and asked them to provide us with a list of names. Our original goal was 16 for our first year. It grew to 25. And I'll tell you exactly why it grew. We got these lists from these students, and they were asking for the things that we take for granted every day. They were asking for towels. They were asking for washcloths. They were asking for face wash. They were asking for a journal to draw in. They were asking for the basic everyday things that my kids have. They wanted warm socks. They wanted a hat that could keep, their head warm, or a warm jacket, or a warm blanket. Just the basic everyday things that so many kids take for granted, and these kids didn't have, and they needed help getting them. Well, that's why our list grew to 25 kids. And then this year we set a goal for 50, and we ended up with taking care of 60 of our McKinney-Vento students. And this is 100% all the gifts, all of the food, because we get them the things that's on their list. We give them a box of food for them to have during the Christmas holiday. We also buy bags that you would put gifts in, and we fill it full of stocking stuffers, which is fruit. It's of course snacks and stuff, but it's also, it might be body wash or toothbrush and toothpaste. It could be, fingernail polish for young ladies. And we also give them a $10 gift card so that they can have, 1 or 2 hot meals during the Christmas break. And we provide that for all of our students, and that's 100% comes out of the transportation employees' pockets. And they are one of the lowest paid employees in the district, and they give so much to these students at Christmas time. I get emotional, and I want to just tear up because I love the big heart that my transportation department has, and that's all transportation departments. And this is one way we get to show our community how much we care, and our students how much we care about them.
Just another example of how the school bus community goes above and beyond simply getting kids to and from school, which is, of course, a Herculean feat and so vital to our national security and the careers and the lives of our young ones. But, another example of the giving nature of student transporters. I would imagine that sounds like it's almost like a year-long job, something that you don't just flip the switch in November or December to get ready for.
No, our big push will start in May when we start talking to the counselors and start making sure that they're prepared to identify, and we start doing different food drives and everything else. But it's all year, and you've got to have a storage place to store stuff, because I've already got donations for next year sitting in my office ready to go for December, and we're in January, or we were just in January.
Yeah, now they're in February, and it's Love the Bus month as well. How are you looking to celebrate your drivers and get the school bus message out this month?
Well, hopefully our drivers are not listening to this, but we have a day picked, and they're going to come in, and we're going to have balloon arches and everything for them. And all the management and all the staff is going to be out front greeting them as they come in, still practicing our social distance. And then they're going to get lunch that day provided to them. And then we have a cute funny little video for them to watch too. So We're going to just treat them that day with lots of love and have a good, fun day with them because they deserve that. They've been working really hard.
Absolutely. It sounds like it's going to be a very fun and festive Valentine's Day week for you all. So have fun. Wish you and yours a very happy Valentine's Day. And if anybody wants to read more about this drive for the challenged students in Mesquite ISD, if you just go over to stnonline.com, go up into the search bar, there's a little magnifying glass at the top right of the homepage. Type in Mesquite, MESQUITE ISD, and then you'll find that article. So, Michelle, thanks so much for taking some time out and talking with us today and sharing everything that you guys are doing in the Dallas area.
Thank you so much for the invite. Anytime. I love y'all to death. Thank you so much.
Hey, special thanks to Michelle and thanks for Ryan. Appreciate you both. Special thanks to our sponsors, TransFinder and Zonar, who have been aboard the podcast for all 50 episodes. Really awesome to have their support. Be sure and check them out. Don't forget, email us at info@stnmedia.com to tell us what you think about the podcast. We want to hear what you want us to discuss, your questions, comments, anything you want to hear from us. We would love to get your feedback. And speaking of feedback, we had a great comment from a listener, Kristen Best. This is a phenomenal way to keep up to date with transportation's latest news. I've been fortunate to be at the live STN Expo in Reno, and now it's like having a resource right in my pocket. Thanks, Kristen. We really appreciate your review, and we thank you for being a listener of School Transportation Nation. And for anybody else, you can check out the podcast at Apple Podcasts, Spotify, stnpodcast.com for everything related to COVID-19 and student transportation. Don't forget stnonline.com to check out all our latest and greatest stories as well. We love you, School Transportation Nation. We'll see you next week.